Hello and welcome. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran and this is Voice of the Global South. All right, then let's get started on the show this week. Tension peaks in South Africa as massive anti-migrant protests spark the worst unrest in decades. We take you inside a nation on the brink. A dramatic political shift is reshaping Latin America. Left-wing influence is receding fast as a powerful conservative blue tide takes over. Fueled in part by Trump's Monroe Doctrine 2.0, this rightward lurch is forcing countries to align with the US, leaving China out in the cold. And $1 million a minute. That was the cost when drone strikes paralyzed Dubai's airport, proving that the UAE's massive wealth cannot buy security. Now, Abu Dhabi is shattering tradition, bypassing Western allies to buy India's supersonic BrahMos missiles. Once the world's biggest arms importer, India is now arming West Asia. South Africa is seeing its largest anti-immigration protests since the deadly violence of 2008. Armed groups, spearheaded by political forces, are demanding the immediate ouster of all undocumented foreign nationals. Is this a boiling point for a strained economy, or is it a dangerous wave of xenophobia? Aman Kumar Himanshu reports.
Traditional sticks, wooden shields, the rhythmic beat of marching feet, and one chant rising above them all, a Bambe, meaning let them go. These are the scenes unfolding across South Africa, where thousands marched through the streets in a display of anti-immigration sentiment. Dressed in traditional Zulu attire, they rallied behind a growing movement demanding the ouster of undocumented foreigners. The protests prompted some migrants to seek transport home. Thousands, mainly from neighboring Zimbabwe and Malawi, gathered at their embassies and consulates to request assistance in returning. The demonstrations follow months of allegedly xenophobic violence in a country where 1 in 3 people is unemployed.
We are going to apply pressure on the government and on the illegal immigrants to ensure that this crisis gets resolved, because we don't want things to get out of order. We have been urging South Africans to say that, please let us be peaceful in everything that we are doing. But it is just a matter of time before things spiral out of control. Illegal immigrants, they must leave South Africa.
This is the introduction and the beginning of what is going to be happening, going on, because we are going to march and march and march and march until they hear us. And whatever it takes, we will do it until our government learn to respect and understand that we are the ones that matters than everyone else that they are prioritizing outside of us.
The demonstrations are among the largest migration-related protests since the wave of anti-migrant violence in 2008. At least 4 people have been killed in recent weeks, prompting migrants to flee or return to their home countries. More than 900 people were arrested during nationwide protests. In recent years, immigration has become one of South Africa's most debated issues because it intersects with several long-standing challenges. High unemployment. South Africa has one of the world's highest unemployment rates, with young people the hardest hit. Some South Africans believe that undocumented migrants compete for scarce jobs by accepting lower wages, particularly in construction, agriculture, domestic work, and the informal sector. Pressure on public healthcare and education. Many argue that undocumented migrants increase demand for public hospitals, schools, housing, and other social services that are already under strain. Economic inequality. Despite being Africa's most industrialized economy, South Africa remains one of the world's most unequal societies. Millions continue to struggle with poverty, rising food prices, electricity shortages, and limited economic opportunities. Crime and public safety concerns. Some political leaders and activist groups link undocumented migration to organized crime, drug trafficking, and human trafficking. South Africa shares long borders with Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Botswana, Namibia, Eswatini, and Lesotho. Critics argue that inconsistent border controls and a slow asylum system have allowed a large backlog of undocumented migrants to accumulate. South Africa is home to an estimated 3 million migrants, around 5% of the population. Most come from neighboring countries such as Lesotho, Zimbabwe, and Mozambique, which have long supplied migrant labor to Africa's largest industrial economy. Many work in the informal sector after economic hardship in their home countries forced them to seek employment across the border. According to South Africa's National Statistics Agency, the country's unemployment rate stood at 32% in the first quarter of 2026 after 350,000 jobs were lost, with young people the hardest hit. But economists and other experts argue that the country's challenges are rooted in broader structural issues and cannot be attributed to a single factor. Even so, immigration has become one of South Africa's most emotionally charged political issues. The latest demonstrations followed a self-imposed 30th June deadline set by some protest groups demanding that all undocumented migrants leave the country. The South African government rejected the ultimatum, saying that only the state has the authority to enforce immigration laws. The 30th June protests were spearheaded by a coalition of groups that have evolved from grassroots movements into organized political forces. Among the most prominent is Operation Dudula, whose name comes from the Zulu word meaning to remove by force. What began as a local movement in Soweto, Johannesburg has since become a political party with ambitions to contest local government elections. Operation Dudula has previously been accused of targeting foreign-owned businesses, checking people's identity documents in public places, and attempting to prevent foreign nationals from accessing public hospitals. Human rights organizations have repeatedly warned that such campaigns risk fueling xenophobic violence. Alongside Operation Dudula, another prominent group is March and March. It has become the public face of a movement that blames South Africa's high unemployment and failing public services on undocumented migration. Its leader, Jacinta Ngobi-Zuma, argues that illegal immigration places additional pressure on employment, housing, healthcare, public services, and national security. She's called for stricter enforcement of immigration laws, particularly those relating to undocumented foreign nationals.
For the next 6 months, we are asking for our national resources to be used to take the illegal immigrants out of this country. From building to building, they must go. Guys, from now on, for as long as they are still here, the whole of South Africa, every Thursday we will march.
Attacks on foreign nationals are not new in South Africa. The country has a long history of anti-immigration violence. In 2008, 62 people were killed in xenophobic riots. Further attacks followed in 2015 and 2016, while at least 12 people were killed in 2019 when armed mobs targeted foreign-owned businesses around Johannesburg. With Aman Kumar Himanshu, Tanvi Taneja for DD India.
From the pampas of Argentina to the highlands of the Andes and the streets of Bogota, a profound shift is reshaping Central and South America. The dominance of left-wing governments is receding fast. In its place, a blue tide of conservative leaders is taking hold. I'd like you to understand this rightward lurch, its scale, its drivers, what it means for the Western Hemisphere, and why it is bad news for China. Now, this is the map of Central and South America from a few years ago. As you can see, it is colored entirely in pink. They called it the pink tide. Leftist, socialist and progressive leaders ruled. Not anymore. The pink tide lies shattered by voter fatigue. A sharp blue tide now sweeps the region. Numbers do not lie. Conservatives have won 12 of the last 16 presidential elections held in Central and South America. This is an unprecedented political shift. In 2023, Javier Milei won in Argentina and Santiago Peña further cemented right-wing rule in Paraguay. In 2024, Jose Raul Molino won in Panama. Luis Abinader was re-elected in the Dominican Republic, and Nayib Bukele won re-election in El Salvador. In 2025, Daniel Noboa was re-elected in Ecuador. Rodrigo Paz won in Bolivia, ending 2 decades of socialist rule. Jose Antonio Cast won big in Chile, and Nasri Asfura's election continued the historical dominance of the conservatives in Honduras. And in 2026, Laura Fernandez Delgado in Costa Rica, Keiko Fujimori in Peru and Abelardo de la Espriella in Colombia emerged victorious. Now, this is no longer a political swing. This is a fundamental contraction of the left's influence. And why is this happening? For one, voters today worry more about safety and basic economic survival than, say, ideology. Issues such as migration pressures, organized crime, and demands for tougher security resonate among voters. Economic frustration also fuels an intense anti-incumbent backlash. Adam Isaacson from the Washington Office on Latin America says only the right has offered short-term security solutions that will make voters feel safe within months, even if it comes at the expense of democracy and human rights. Get this, Central and South America hold 8% of global population, yet it suffers 1/3 of global homicides. Under some leftist governments, transnational cartels expanded rapidly. Look at Costa Rica, for example. Once a peaceful oasis of stability, cartels turned it into a drug hub. The murder rate jumped 50% in 6 years. Voters panicked. They chose Laura Fernandez because she promised maximum security prisons. Then comes the economy. Unchecked public spending brought hyperinflation. Leftist leaders promised equity but delivered poverty. And now leaders such as Argentina's Javier Milei are solidifying the influence of the right. Now, this regional lurch is not happening in a vacuum. It dovetails perfectly with U.S. strategy. Now, since 2025, President Donald Trump's government has fundamentally altered U.S. foreign policy. It is pursuing what is known as the Monroe Doctrine 2.0, a highly explicit, aggressive strategy for the Western Hemisphere. Codified in the Trump government's national security strategy, this approach represents a massive geopolitical pivot that treats Latin America as the U.S.'s primary security and economic priority. It forces a stark choice upon Latin American countries: align with the U.S. or face total isolation. The Trump government is seeking to build a U.S.-aligned security and resources corridor, and these new Latin American leaders are adopting the exact playbook. Cast in Chile used Trump-style immigration themes, and supporters in Santiago literally wear Make Chile Great Again caps. Take Colombia's president-elect Abelardo de la Espriella. Under his predecessor, Gustavo Petro, relations with the U.S. collapsed. Petro clashed with Trump over cocaine trafficking and migration. The U.S. even revoked Petro's visa in 2025. De la Espriella has already reversed course. He is slashing corporate taxes, he is restoring deep diplomatic ties with Israel, and is locking step with Washington, D.C. Now, this blue tide is bad news for China. Over the last 2 decades, China quietly expanded its influence across Latin America. It built mega ports in Peru, financed dams in Ecuador, secured lithium contracts across the lithium triangle. But today, the U.S. has made countering Chinese influence its top regional priority. From Panama to Chile, the U.S. is actively resisting Chinese infrastructure contracts. Conservative leaders are realizing that they must choose sides. Of course, exceptions remain. Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela stand apart. Cuba remains a communist one-party state, but it is rapidly adopting capitalist free market mechanics to survive economic strain and U.S. blockade. Nicaragua, under Daniel Ortega and his wife Rosario Murillo, has so far navigated the storm but remains isolated and repressive. Venezuela saw a dramatic upheaval with President Nicolas Maduro's capture by the U.S. earlier this year. The left wrested power in Guatemala, Uruguay, and Brazil and retains Mexico. Now, all eyes are now on Brazil, which goes to the polls in October. It is Latin America's largest economy and it is deeply polarized. The upcoming battle features leftist incumbent Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Facing him is Flavio Bolsonaro, the political heir to Jair Bolsonaro, who is currently serving a 27-year prison sentence for his involvement in a failed 2023 coup attempt. Of course, there is always the so-called pendulum effect. When the left fails, the pendulum shifts to the right. And when the right falters, it swings back to the left. But make no mistake, from the streets of Bogota to the halls of Santiago, ideology is taking a backseat to raw survival. There is a discernible structural realignment of an entire continent, driven by a ruthless demand for security and backed by a transactional and aggressive U.S. foreign policy. The pink tide built a dream that collapsed under the weight of crime and economic ruin. The blue tide promises an iron fist. The only remaining question is whether that iron fist will protect Latin America's fragile democracies or crush them entirely. For decades, the UAE has depended on Western powers for its defense needs. But today, that equation appears to be changing. In a significant strategic shift, Abu Dhabi is reportedly in talks to acquire India's advanced defense systems. Why is the UAE turning to India? What makes Indian military hardware so attractive? How could this deal reshape both regional geopolitics and India's defense export ambitions? Aman Kumar Himanshu has more.
Rising from the desert, the United Arab Emirates has become a symbol of ambition and prosperity. From the towering Burj Khalifa, the world-class financial hubs, luxury resorts, and some of the world's busiest airports, the UAE has built a reputation as one of West Asia's safest and most stable nations. But recent conflicts have exposed a hard truth that prosperity alone cannot guarantee security. As missile and drone threats reshape West Asia's strategic landscape, the UAE is strengthening its defenses, and in that search, India is emerging as a key partner. According to Reuters news agency, Abu Dhabi is in talks with New Delhi to acquire two of India's most advanced indigenous defense systems, the BrahMos and the Akash Tir. Together, these indigenous systems represent the sword and shield of India's military. BrahMos is a supersonic cruise missile jointly developed by India and Russia. The name BrahMos is a linguistic blend of the names of two major rivers, the Brahmaputra in India and the Moskva in Russia. It is among the world's fastest operational cruise missiles, traveling at Mach 2.8 to Mach 3, nearly 3 times the speed of sound. The missile is capable of being launched from land, sea, air, or a submarine. It carries a 200 to 300 kilogram conventional warhead. Its fire and forget system requires no guidance after launch, and its low radar cross-section makes interception extremely difficult. Akash Tir is an AI-enabled, fully automated air defense control and reporting system. It is designed to detect, track, and neutralize enemy drones and missiles in real time. A former Lieutenant General of the Indian Army says the UAE is also interested in a wider basket of Indian equipment, including Akash, surface-to-air missiles, Pinaka rocket systems, precision-guided munitions, and drones for naval or coastal defense. The UAE already operates advanced US-made defense systems. Experts believe that India's BrahMos and Akash Tir could enhance coordination among these systems. But the proposed deal raises an important question. Why is the UAE suddenly so interested in Indian defense technology? Because it had traditionally bought its weapons from Western countries. The UAE's interest in Indian defense technology did not emerge in a vacuum. It was forged in crisis. Between February and June, the Gulf became the stage of an unprecedented wave of Iranian attacks. More than 7,000 missiles and drones rained across the region, overwhelming the conventional air defenses. No country felt the pressure more acutely than the UAE, which absorbed nearly half of those strikes. The attacks were not only a military challenge, they exposed how vulnerable one of the world's most connected economies had become. The most striking moment came in February when Dubai International Airport was forced to shut down for 3 days. Every minute the airport remained closed reportedly cost it around $1 million, turning a security crisis into an economic one. For a country built on trade, tourism, and global connectivity, the disruption was a stark reminder that modern warfare can cripple an economy without occupying a single inch of territory. The crisis also underscored the importance of protecting the Strait of Hormuz, through which much of the UAE's energy exports pass. For decades, the UAE built its security on powerful allies. Most of its weapons came from the US, with France and South Korea also playing key roles. But the Iran war exposed a hard truth that even strong alliances could not guarantee complete security. The experience prompted Abu Dhabi to rethink its dependence on a handful of suppliers. According to experts, a diversified supplier base gives the UAE more strategic autonomy. Closer ties with India have the added benefit of not antagonizing the US as the countries remain allies. The Philippines was the first international customer for the BrahMos, signing a historic $375 million deal in 2022 for 3 shore-based anti-ship missile batteries. India's Defense Secretary told the Shangri-La Dialogue hosted by Singapore this year that a BrahMos deal with Vietnam has been signed. Indonesia is the third Indo-Pacific country to enter into negotiations to acquire the system. The UAE could become the 4th country to buy the BrahMos. The negotiations come amid rapidly expanding strategic ties between India and the UAE. Over the years, the two countries have signed multiple agreements covering trade, energy, investment, and defense manufacturing, including a pact to jointly develop military hardware. Earlier this year, during UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan's visit to India, both countries signed a letter of intent to establish a strategic defense partnership framework agreement covering defense industrial collaboration, advanced technology, counterterrorism, and interoperability. The proposed deal reflects New Delhi's broader strategy of deepening ties with Abu Dhabi while serving as a quiet counterweight to the Saudi Arabia-Pakistan Defense Pact. Last year, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan signed a strategic mutual defense agreement under which an attack on either country would be treated as an attack on both. India's rise as a defense exporter has gathered pace in recent years, driven by the government's push to build a self-reliant military industry. In 2026, defense exports crossed $4 billion, and New Delhi has set its sights on reaching $6 billion by 2029. It was Operation Sindoor that transformed India's defense story. The conflict became a real-world showcase for indigenous weapon systems, with the BrahMos supersonic cruise missile emerging as a standout performer. Its speed, precision, and battlefield effectiveness captured global attention, proving that Indian-made weapons were not only affordable but also combat-tested. The operation immediately caught the attention of more international buyers. Apart from the UAE, more than 17 countries, including Malaysia, Saudi Arabia, and Brazil, have expressed interest in acquiring the BrahMos. The growing demand marks a remarkable shift for New Delhi. Once known as the world's largest arms importer, India is steadily carving out a place among the world's leading defense exporters, turning its battlefield success into a powerful diplomatic and commercial asset. Aman Kumar Himanshu for DD India.
And with that, it's a wrap. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.